Another scary aftershock in Ecuador sends residents running out into the streets, and Mexico's oil company Pemex under scrutiny after an accident. Death toll rises. Those were our headlines. My name is Reagan Des Vignes, and this is From the South. Thank you so much for joining us. Another 6.2 magnitude earth aftershock rattled Ecuador last night. The movement was felt in Ecuador's capital, Quito, as well as in the country's largest city, Guayaquil. According to the Ecuadorian Geophysics Institute, the aftershocks of Saturday's 7.8 earthquake could go on for weeks. Residents of the coastal areas hit by Saturday's quake have not been able to sleep due to continued concerns that a large aftershock might bring more destruction. And as rescue efforts continue in the coastal cities and towns, the government has begun setting up refuge centers where aid and medical attention are being delivered. However, the aid is slowly reaching the smaller towns affected and even slower to more remote places. The death toll is now at 27 after authorities entered a Pemex chemical, discovering more casualties of Wednesday's blast. That's a chemical plant. The government has requested an investigation on the events that led to the explosion. And after the explosion, a growing debate has emerged over the capacity of Mexico's state-run oil company Pemex to guarantee safety at its facilities. Our correspondent Clayton Khan explains.
It was on Friday that officials announced that the number of fatalities from Wednesday's petrochemical plant blast in Coatzacoalcos, Veracruz had nearly doubled to 24. On Thursday, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto announced that the federal government would do everything in its power to support the families of the victims.
Caused pain and sorrow on families and people who have been injured. From here I stand by in solidarity with those families who are going through pain and suffering.
Authorities believe the accident was caused by a chemical leak at the Chlorinite 3 facility of the plant, which is jointly controlled by the state-run oil company Pemex and a private firm called Mexichem.
This company, Mexichem, in 2013 took over more than 50% of the shares from its affiliate Pemex and reduced in a substantial way its participation in terms of maintenance of the installation that the Pajaritos plant required and in which the company committed to carry out.
Wednesday's explosion comes after a string of accidents at Pemex facilities in recent years that has battered the economically struggling company. Some critics believe that placing the blame on Pemex rather than also on its private subsidiaries fits into a larger plan to ultimately privatize the company.
The first thing the federal government did was to insist that Pemex was responsible for the explosion at the plant, which is controlled by a private company called Mexichem. This is to reinforce the idea on the public opinion that Pemex is responsible and thus Pemex is deficient and is not profitable, so Pemex must disappear.
Mexico's 2013 energy reform opened the country's 7-decade-long nationalized oil industry to privatization. Now with the international drop in oil prices, analysts argue that there may be further casualties due to industrial accidents as Pemex is run into the ground. Clayton Khan, teleSur's, Mexico City.
U.S. and Mexican authorities have located the largest drug tunnel yet, crossing from Mexico into San Diego, California. The tunnel was discovered by U.S. agents covered by a bin. It is more than 800 yards long, and authorities have already arrested 6 people in connection with the tunnel and seized thousands of pounds of marijuana and cocaine. The tunnel included a railway, a ventilation system, and an elevator. Cuba has announced that it will lift the ban on commercial cruise ships for both Cubans and foreigners. The ban was implemented during the Cold War to prevent the entry of former Cuban citizens, also due to fears of infiltration of foreign agents. The announcement comes as the first cruise ship from the United States is set to dock on the island on May 1st. Also in Cuba, the government has announced that it will reduce the prices of certain staple foods in the state-run supermarkets. The new measure aims to help increase the buying power of Cubans ahead of expectations of increased commerce as the island and the United States slowly re-establish relations. Colombia's President Juan Manuel Santos once again spoke in favor of regulating the use of drugs during the United Nations session to sign the Paris Climate Change Agreement. President Santos explained that his country will modify its drug policy, especially as it pertains to sanctions.
How can I explain to a humble Colombian peasant that he's going to jail because he's growing marijuana, when in many states like Colorado or Washington, here in the United States, anyone can produce it, sell it, and consume it freely? It makes no sense.
And the resignation of the Colombian Minister of Energy, Maria Lorena Gutierrez, has hastened the return of President Santos to Colombia for a complete cabinet reshuffle. Gutierrez was also serving as mining minister temporarily after Minister Tomas Gonzalez resigned earlier in March. Gutierrez was also considered one of President Santos's closest aides. Although the reason for her resignation is not clear, sources close to Gutierrez have suggested that she left due to differences of opinion within the cabinet. Argentina notified U.S. federal judge Tomas Griesa that it paid its default debt. The government is now demanding that the judge allow it to return to U.S. financial markets. The announcement comes as the government of Mauricio Macri issued $12.5 billion in bonds, which have been used to pay the debt and close the fiscal deficit. Several hundred protesters marched through the streets of Sao Paulo on Thursday evening to show their support for Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff as she faces an impeachment process in the Senate. She took the time out to thank her supporters. And during the signature of the Paris Agreement at the United Nations, President Rousseff referred to the ongoing impeachment process against her.
I cannot conclude my remarks without mentioning the grave, serious moment Brazil is currently undergoing. Despite this, however, I wish to say that Brazil is a great country, endowed with a society that was able to overcome authoritarianism in the past and build a vibrant democracy. Ours is a hard-working people, and we have great esteem for freedom. I have no doubt that our people will be capable of preventing any setbacks. I'm grateful to all the leaders that have expressed their solidarity to me. Thank you very much.
About 171 countries have signed the Paris Climate Agreement at the UN headquarters in New York earlier today. This makes it a record number for a new international treaty. About 15 nations, mainly small island states, had already ratified the agreement. Actor Leonardo DiCaprio, in his capacity as United Nations Messenger of Peace, addressed the world leaders present before they signed the deal.
We can congratulate each other today, but it will mean absolutely nothing if you return to your countries and fail to push beyond the promises of this historic agreement. Now is the time for bold, unprecedented action. My friends, look at the delegates around you. It is time to ask each other, which side of history will you be on?
President of the United States, Barack Obama, is on a 3-day state visit to the United Kingdom and has weighed in on Brexit. Obama is being hosted by British Prime Minister David Cameron on what is to be his last visit as president to the United Kingdom. While speaking to the press, Obama said that the UK should stay in the EU.
The United States wants a strong United Kingdom as a partner. And the United Kingdom is at its best when it's helping to lead a strong Europe. It leverages UK power to be part of the European Union.
Despite the withdrawal of Syria's main opposition group earlier this week, Syria peace talks will continue next week. This is according to the head of the Syrian regime's delegation, Bashar al-Jafari, after meeting with UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura. Meanwhile, in Syria, at least 10 people were killed across Aleppo and several dozen others were injured in airstrikes. 3 Red Cross workers who were captured last weekend by Islamist militant group Ansar Dine in Mali have been freed. Initially, the group said that the hostages would be safely returned in exchange for the release of one of their members who was arrested by French troops. But according to the ICRC, they received no demands from the group, and their staff members were released unconditionally. An Israeli soldier sergeant, Elor Azaria, who was facing manslaughter charges after he shot a wounded Palestinian assailant, was released for Passover. Azaria will be allowed to spend the holiday with his family, according to Israeli media. The soldier was freed on video firing once, was seen on video firing once into the head of the Palestinian on March 24th. It's obligatory that he return to custody on April 24th. Armed men opened fire and killed a prominent Sikh figure and opposition party worker in Pakistan. Suran Singh was a leading figure in the Sikh community and an advisor to a provincial chief minister. Sikhs make up less than 1% of Pakistan's 190 million people. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. A man accused of hijacking an Egypt airplane and diverting it to Cyprus appeared in court earlier today. Saif al-Din Mohammed Mustafa is expected to fight his extradition after claiming asylum to stay on the island. This asylum request is being reviewed by the Immigration Department in parallel with the court hearing on extradition. International soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo is suffering from an injury which he sustained during a match on April 19th, this past Wednesday. According to Real Madrid coach Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo has been diagnosed with a muscle strain in his right thigh, and as a result, he will not play in Saturday's match in Rayo Vallecano. Ronaldo's injury is not serious, but Zidane said his recovery needs to be assessed. Archaeologists in Peru have unearthed 15 tombs with human remains and cultural artifacts from both pre-colonial and colonial periods. The tombs were found beside a colonial church in the northwestern Trujillo province. The archaeologists also discovered a wall thought to have been part of a structure that predates the existing church. For more on these and other stories, you can visit our website, telesurtv.net/English, or you can join us on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter. For TeleSur English, I'm Reagan Des Vignes. Have a great weekend. Bye.